So we're proposing in Fianna Fáil a multi-annual recovery programme for the sector of aviation that should include a CapEx programme for regional airports and tax incentives to entice more aviation maintenance, repair and operation industry to Ireland. Supports for airlines must be conditional on the employment conditions of those working in the sector being upheld, cabin crew bases being retained and key routes maintained. Fianna Fáil firmly believes that in order to see an economic recovery in all of our regions, we will need to see balanced recovery in terms of regional air connectivity. Ireland's regional airports should have secure and prime landing slots in the UK and continental Europe that can offer excellent onward connectivity to the wider world. The withdrawal of Stobart Air last week has been a major blow for regional air connectivity. It's essential that we see a continuance of the vital government-funded PSO routes which operate between Kerry and Dublin and Donegal and Dublin, and it's critical to support these regions.
So how do we transition from where we are today in the medium and long term? And the key components for the hospitality sector is one, the cash liquidity the business has to pay their day-to-day bills, and that's where it's critically important, like measures like EWS, the VAT, 9% VAT is kept in place, commercial rates, waiver schemes are kept in place, and then as Cathal says, how do we transition then, and by promoting tourism back through incentives like the returning diaspora, trying to engage international conferences, bringing them back. We're looking at the VAT on international conferences. A lot of our European neighbours have a refund scheme for international conferences. Could we look at a way of that? Because one of the greatest impacts from the hospitality sector has not been the rural areas, has in fact been our city centres, which is based mainly on conferences and business activity, which has been decimated. But our critical point, I suppose, is that we provide liquidity to allow those businesses to sustain themselves in the medium term while we transition back to those levels of tourism that we had.
But the reality is that many businesses that have been dramatically affected don't see an end in sight, and particularly that's in the aviation and hospitality sector. From an aviation perspective, which we are so dependent on in this country as an island, we're going to have to provide additional route supports to ensure that our regional airports like Shannon, Cork and others are provided with funding to attract airlines onto routes that won't be profitable perhaps for the next 2 to 3 years, but are vital for economic recovery in those regions. So it's important now that the government stands behind those regions, puts in place the kind of route support that protects strategic routes that, as I said, may not be profitable for the coming number of years, but are absolutely a requirement to protect and deliver for the business and tourism interests in that region.
Look, I'm looking forward to the opportunity alongside Deputy Cathal Crowe and Senator Timmy Dooley to put questions to Tony Holohan about the issue of antigen testing, which has been very controversial, as we all know. I think this is one important part of the body of work that has been done within this report, and particular for aviation workers, which there are over 120,000 livelihoods dependent on in the state.
And as chair of the Oireachtas Committee for Tourism, we have had quite a number of the stakeholders involved in the hospitality sector, and we are acutely aware of how the hospitality sector has been impacted in terms of our domestic economy. And I'm looking forward, we have Paul Trevaux, a very well-known celebrity chef, coming in next week, and again he is going to be talking to us about a plan out of this in terms of I suppose saving this summer and potentially building back to where we were at 2019 levels in the very near future with our bars, restaurants, hospitality sector right across the country.